Hello, everyone. Welcome to another interview here at JordanCon. I have with me today the absolutely lovely author, Sarah Madsen. Say hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Shit, oh my God, so amazing. All right. So, Sarah Madsen is an author, obviously, as I said, because I'm amazing at this. She's also a freelance tabletop role playing writer and designer, contributing to various RPG publishers like Wizards of the Coast. You might know them from, Dungeons and Dragons, Kobold Press, and Cubicle 7. She enjoys playing video games, TTRPGs, and her spare time loves gin cocktails, fancy lattes, me too, and romanceable NPCs. So did I get that all right? Is there anything else that you want to slip in there?
Nope, that's pretty much me. So nailed it. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So romanceable NPCs. I mean, immediately I think of Dragon Age, but yeah, okay, all right,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling.
Yeah.
So if you had to choose, like, let's say, top three romanceable NPCs from video games, like,
Oh
who would you
gosh.
pick?
Uh, from video games. So I've definitely got plenty. When I played The Witcher 3, I was definitely a Yennefer.
Oh yeah,
Geralt, Yennefer, Geralt. Anyway,
yeah.
yes, Yennefer was definitely my choice for that one. Um, when I played this Mass Effect trilogy, I feel like I'm a little bit of an outlier. I romanced Caden
Okay.
and not Garrus, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I did something. So when I played through the trilogy, I played it after all three games were out.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah, and I kind of had a little bit of insider knowledge where I knew whoever you romanced in the first game wouldn't be in the second game, and then they would be in the third game.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Um, and did something a little out of character where I didn't romance anyone in the second game because I kind of was like had that
Holding out.
loyalty. Yeah. No, I was like, no, I know they're going to be back. So I definitely need to replay through. I mean, I replayed it a couple of times, but I
Yeah.
keep romancing Caden because that's kind of how I roll. But I need to go through and romance some other people. But definitely my number one video game romance option would be Alistair from Dragon Age Origins.
Yep.
Absolutely. I have lots of feelings about Alistair. Apologies to my husband on that. But yeah, for sure. Cullen slides in as a close second from Dragon Age Inquisition, but Alistair definitely for sure. Number
That's
one
fair. That's fair.
forever.
Yeah, first Dragon Age for me was either Lulu or Alistair as well. I actually preferred the Alistair one because it just made for a more interesting carryover for the later saves. But
Yes.
all right, so that's cool. I am jealous that you get that you got to play Mass Effect after all three were out because oh man, waiting for them was rough.
Yeah, I'm kind of dealing with that a little bit with waiting for Dragon Age 4
Oh,
to come out,
yeah, well,
where I've waiting and
yeah,
waiting and I'm wanting them to, take their time and do a really good job, but it's a lot.
it's hard. It's
It's
hard.
a lot of waiting.
It's hard. It's so hard. Oh man. All right. So, but you are an author, so writing. I mean, video games are fun, but uh, let's talk about writing for a second. So, one thing that I always found interesting is like talking to writers at JordanCon is that like you guys have to do lots of weird research, and I often see like funny posts on like Twitter and stuff like that of authors going, "Oh man, whatever FBI agent has to look at my search history is gonna whatever." So is there anything for any of your books that you've researched that your FBI agent would maybe blush at or find interesting?
I mean, I've definitely Googled my fair share of like blood splatter patterns or like how long does it take for a body to decompose in like these situations or like, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I spend a lot of time Googling technology stuff. So Weaver's Folly, which is my first book, is set in like a near future Atlanta.
Hmm.
And so I do a lot of like trying to keep up and keep one step ahead of the technology that we're at right now. Because I originally started writing these books like 10 years ago,
Okay.
um, which, the characters you can get computers in your brain, right? But like now we've got like the Neuralink
Yeah,
stuff
we're
coming
almost
out.
there.
And I'm like, oh, well, okay, it's not really that futuristic anymore. So it is a lot of trying to you know, extrapolate on, okay, well, where are we and where will we be? And then like, well, I have this setting piece that I established as being futuristic and it's not anymore. And so kind of juggling that is definitely takes up a lot of my Googling time.
That's
Um,
that's fair.
it's hard. Although I did discover recently, I was working on a different project that there's a big hole in the ocean off of the coast of Belize, and it's super bizarre. It's like this 400-foot deep sinkhole. It's called the Deep Blue Hole. Anyway, that was my most
That's
recent
pretty
like
cool.
crazy. I was just googling, sort of, um, sites and attractions and things that in that area, and
Yeah.
that popped up, and I was like, that's terrifying.
That's
There's
going in the
just a
story.
giant hole. Like that's terrifying. Put a pin in that one for
Uh,
later. Yeah,
I,
for sure.
I got to look that up. Belize giant hole in the ocean. I definitely have
Yeah,
to look that up.
yeah,
So well, that actually kind of leads me into a question that I'm wondering. So like, you would say like urban fantasy for your books is an
yes,
accurate ish.
yes. I kind of describe it as cyberpunky urban fantasy. It definitely
Yeah.
leans heavily into a lot of the urban fantasy tropes, and
Yeah.
main character has magic and she's an elf, and then but it's also has those cyberpunk, a little bit of Shadowrun sort of feel to it, where there's like high tech and
Okay.
brain mods, and you get hired to go steal stuff from people, and so yeah, a little bit of both, but
That's pretty cool.
definitely urban fantasy heavy. Yeah.
Okay. Do you so something that I think about when I read urban fantasy is especially like going back and forth from urban fantasy to like regular sword and sorcery fantasy. Do you find it like harder or just a different type of animal to like write where it's a character if they need to contact someone in like a sword and sorcery fantasy setting like they got to go find them or they got to write a letter and hope it gets there or something where in like a urban fantasy setting they could just pick up a phone or if a character doesn't know something they could just pick up a phone or they could or depending on when you said it they could go to the library and look it up on the computer whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any kind of like interesting techniques or process that you would go through for doing that?
For as far as so That's definitely is a little tricky because you always need to have your character, like, to establish that tension, right? There always needs to be something your character maybe doesn't know,
Yeah.
or you know there's an emergency happening and you have to get in touch with this other guy, or like something terrible is going to happen. Well, when you have a phone in your brain, it's pretty easy to do that, right? It's not like you can't pick it up. So playing a lot with the idea of you may have immediate access to these things, but they may not always be reliable, um, is very fun. Or the whole concept of an oral history maybe not being entirely accurate, or different versions of stories coming with different details and different, not always having the entire picture, because you don't always know what you don't know, right? Like
Yeah.
we're the same way, where we're functioning on the knowledge that we have, and then you don't realize that you have a hole, in your expertise or in your knowledge until it jumps out and bites you. So
Yeah, that's fair.
um, playing a lot with that is a lot of fun. So
That's cool. Yeah, I've never actually written anything before, but I can imagine reading. I've read a lot and reading it. That's something that I always think about is like because a big thing is communication in fantasy and how do you get around doing that? So that's pretty cool. Speaking of writing though, in your process, do you have any kind of weird quirks or for your writing process, like for instance, I think it was Hemingway had to stand when he wrote or he couldn't write I when I was looking up writers weird writing process quirks, like Dan Brown would hang upside down when he had writer's block. So like is there any kind of do you have like a pull-up bar in your office where you hang upside down or anything like that?
no, I'm not nearly that athletic.
Yeah, I couldn't do that either.
No, my biggest thing I find to get me to focus, well, I have two things. So I find headphones to be extremely helpful. Headphones with music, no words, like instrumental
Instrumental. Okay.
video game music, or movie scores are really helpful.
Okay.
And I also I make a lot of use of the Pomodoro method of writing, which I
Okay.
don't know if you know what that is.
I am unfamiliar with that.
So it's named after the little tomato timers that you find in the kitchen a lot of times. They're Pomodoro, I think, is like the French word for it or something.
Yeah.
And so basically, you set a specific amount of time that you're writing and then a specific amount of time that you take a break. I tend to do 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
Okay.
And it gives you, at least for me, because if I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit down and write for 3 hours, that's a long period of time to be super focused,
Yeah.
right? And my brain gets fatigued and my attention wanders really easily. And then I realize it's been 2 hours and I've done no writing, right? So the Pomodoro method is like you set a timer for 20 minutes and you do nothing but write for those 20 minutes. You don't click over to Twitter, you don't pick up your phone to text somebody, you just focus on writing. And then when the timer rings, you get 5 minutes to browse social media, get up and get a drink, do whatever. And it helps me really focus, really get words on the page. Otherwise, I am just a distracted mess all day long and I get nothing done at all. So
I totally feel that. That's a great idea. It's like, 20 minutes is a bite-size amount. Like it's enough to, really get into something for, to be able to do it. Like, anything shorter than that might feel a little like not enough, but it's also not insurmountable. It's like, oh, I said I was going to do 3 hours. It's already been an hour,
Right. Or even like, 45 minutes is a lot. It's a lot to be on. And the good thing about like 15 minutes, 20 minutes is usually by the time you get to the end of your 20 minutes, you're into it enough that you're stopping somewhere where you want to get back to writing when those 5 minutes are over. So it really helps kind of keep the momentum going.
It's like dangling a carrot in front of your own face.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, I was right in the middle of something. It's like, no, leave it. Come back in 5 minutes. It'll still be there. It'll be good.
That's pretty cool. So, because we didn't mention it before, I have one question about something that you've written that I'm sure most of our viewers probably have seen or at least partaken of at some point. But if you had to give like an elevator pitch for your series, could you give that?
Oh God, I hate that question.
No,
I feel like
okay.
as an author, I should be better at this, right? The elevator pitch.
Yeah.
So my main character, Alyssa, is an elf, and she runs an antique store selling like MP3 players in Atlanta during the day, and at night she freelances as a thief, doing like corporate crime.
So
takes it
very much like Shadowrun.
Yes, very similar to Shadowrun. I mean, she kind of takes whatever job she can get, right? She prefers the big dollars if you can get like a good corporate run, but whatever. And she kind of takes a job that ends up biting off a little more than she can chew. And there's a lot of politics and
that's cool,
fun stuff. So
yeah, that's fun. So the thing that I was going to bring up was your story in Candlekeep Mysteries. So for those who don't know that book specifically, but are aware of Dungeons and Dragons from Wizards of the Coast, Candlekeep Mysteries was is it accurate to say like a compendium of like add-on adventures that people could use?
Yeah, it's a collection of one-shot adventures. They range from level 1 to I think level 15 or 12 or 15, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And we kind of wrote them with the intention of they can be played on their own. You can take them and, make a few tweaks and drop them into your own campaign if you're doing something homebrew. Or you can put them, in the middle of arcs if you need a little bit, if your characters need something to do between major story arcs, that kind of thing. So yeah, they're all one-shot. One-shot adventures.
That's cool. Yeah, I do like. I was reading through yours specifically, which is A Deep and Creeping Darkness. Goes right along with that giant hole in the ocean. There's a theme here. No. So yours is for level 4 characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scrolling through it, and I'm gonna pull it up on screen now. So okay. So what I have on screen now for everyone that's watching is your adventure, and I'm just gonna scroll through it here. I don't want to spoil too much for anybody, but the art here is just really awesome. So I just want to ask, like, what is it like to write for? I mean, you write for yourself in your own series, but in this you're writing for. I don't want to say like a corporation from your series or anything like that, but it is like a big moving. Like you're a small cog in a large moving puzzle here, especially even just within this book. There's many writers who wrote in this book. So what is
Mm-hmm.
that process like? And then specifically, I'm scrolling through here slowly, but I want to get down specifically to the art here. So this is Lucas Grosvenor. He is a
Yes.
95-year-old human male tavern keeper, a bartender. So yeah, so like what's the process for writing in, like, for Wizards of the Coast or in Dungeons and Dragons, this book specifically, however you want to frame it. And then, like, I guess, do you have input on the art for these characters? What do you think of the final product?
So, as far as the process goes, it was definitely a little bit of a back and forth where, they came to me with the first basic concept of what they were doing with the book. And then basically asked me to pitch an adventure, in that level range. Real brief adventure summary, kind of give them an idea of what I was thinking of. And then they came back and you either repitch something else or adjust and tweak the adventure, which I tweaked mine a little bit. I originally had a different monster for my adventure, and they really wanted to stick with ones that, as much as we could, that already existed. So I kind of had to adjust things a little bit. Then you draft it, and then you get feedback, and then you make revisions, and then which I think the biggest thing, I think, when you're writing for novels a bit at this point, and but also when you're writing for another company, especially like within an IP, is you can't be super precious about it, right? They are going to have changes that they're going to want to make, and it's either going to be, oh, we already have something like this in one of the other adventures, we need to change it, or this isn't really fitting the tone of what we want to do, or no, we want to go in a different direction. And they have all sorts of reasons for, wanting to make the changes that they want you to make. And being flexible and being able to, adjust and kind of go with, what you need to do to fit what they're looking for, but also staying true to your vision is can be a careful, tightrope to walk. It's a lot of fun, though. It was a lot of fun. It was a good experience. So as far as the art goes, I did not have a lot of input in the art direction for these past the descriptions that I had given in my adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I was not asked to write any art briefs or anything. And I think, I'm in love with the art. Like, I think the NPCs really are fantastic. Yeah. I think that, the artist really did a really great job with in capturing kind of the vibe I was going for without having any, direct contact with me. I thought it was very good. So
they're good at their jobs, I guess.
Yep. No. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I really enjoy. I'm actually running a campaign right now, and I'm totally dropping this adventure into our campaign. And I want to say it does. And I was reading through the others too. This specific book does lend well to just making slight tweaks to be able to drop it in, and because I'm doing a home brewy-ish campaign too. So no, yeah, it's really good. I do enjoy that. So I guess that kind of leads into another question that I had, which is right along the lines of this. So for the mechanics of writing in this, so like, it's Dungeons and Dragons. So there's, if it's a level 4 adventure, there's 2 monsters of XCR, which for the uninitiated means combat rating, like the difficulty of the monster that the players are going to fight. Is that something that I know you are a learned tabletop RPGer, but is that something that you have input in, or do you just, make like a baseline and then they're the ones that flesh out like the balancing of the adventure?
So I was told what level adventure that I needed to write. So I had that laid out for me, and I was kind of given guidelines as far as like, this is the amount of loot that we can give and that sort of thing. Because you don't want to like take first level characters and just pile a whole bunch of legendary items on them, right? Yeah. Like you need to kind of balance that out.
It's like, all of a sudden they find a sun sword, which is a lightsaber, by the way. Essentially.
But oh gosh, where was I? I lost my... No, they do a lot of playtesting. So if there were any balance issues that would be addressed, yes, they handle the playtesting. So it's definitely, for me, because I didn't do any playtesting, it was kind of hoping that I had the right. Yeah. Just like with any DM, you establish your encounters and then you kind of cross your fingers that, you don't TPK or it's not too easy. But yeah, they handled all of the playtesting and if there needed to be any adjustments in encounters, they would have handled that. So
That's cool. And that leads me into a couple of other just small little tidbit questions. So you play, obviously, I'm guessing that you play a fair amount of
yes.
TTRPGs. So do you have like a favorite spell maybe, or least favorite spell if like, if you can't think of one or the other?
Oh gosh. So
As a
I
DM
mean,
or a player, like,
they're all so good.
I know.
I think so. Counterspell is super clutch.
Yeah.
Which is, it was funny because when I was running a game, I actually had a bard and a wizard. And when they got to the point where they were able to take counterspell, I was like, look, I feel like I would be a really bad DM if I didn't tell you, you should probably take counterspell. Like, I'm going to hate that you have this, especially since there's two of you and you can kind of tag team me with it. It sucks. But because they were newer players, I was like, you should, I'm not telling you have to, but like, look at the spell and just think about it,
Yeah.
That's
my kind of DM.
Yeah.
DM I don't like the confrontational DM setting. Like, I like it when it's like more of it's very cooperative.
Yeah. And I just love Fireball. It's fun to roll just a giant pile of dice and just wreak destruction, and as long as everything doesn't make their dexterity save, it's just this big pile of exploding dice. It's great.
Oh, it's fantastic. So. It is definitely satisfying hearing all those clicky clackies.
Yep.
Yeah. I ran a campaign and one of our players disintegrated an NPC with a quest giver NPC with a fireball. So I had to do some quick editing real quick. They accidentally they weren't thinking of the explosion, the radius of effect of the fireball. But yeah, that was fun. So what an idea I had for these interviews was a favorite show of mine growing up and up until the last few years ago was, I don't know if you're familiar or if other people are familiar with it, was a show called Inside the Actors Studio. Are you familiar with that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Okay. So I really enjoyed those. I've watched them so many times. I actually have someone got them for me for on DVD years ago. So I have like a box set of like whatever seasons they are at the time when they were released. But James Lipton was the host of that, and he had a set of questions that he would ask the actors at the end of every interview. So I've pared them down a little bit, but I just thought it would be fun to do with our JordanCon guests to ask them these questions. So here we go. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word, phantasmagoric. It's just fun to say. It's good. It's great. It's a great word.
I agree. That is definitely, it's a fun word to hear. What is your least favorite word?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a least favorite word. Well, I probably have a few, but I don't want to say them. I'm also, actually, I really am not a big fan of the word crepuscular.
Okay.
I think it doesn't sound like what it is. Like, it sounds kind of gross, and it's not. I think it means like that time between, it either means nocturnal or it means like that time between like twilight, that twilight time, crepuscular. But it sounds really like kind of gross, right?
Okay. Yeah. That is. You are correct. It is appearing active at night, like nocturnal. Yeah. It does sound. Yeah. It does sound almost like capillary or like
like it sounds. It just sounds. Yeah. It sounds more. I don't know. It doesn't sound like what it is.
It sounds worse than it should be. Yeah. Okay. Crepuscular. I think I'm going to start using that, but not around you. I promise. If you could attempt another profession other than your own, what would it be?
I was a barista for a little while, and sometimes I'm like, maybe I should just open a coffee shop, but then I don't want to have to like get up at 4 a.m. or whatever. That's awful.
Yeah.
A lot of those come live on a tiny island off the coast of England and take care of a castle kind of jobs really kind of catch my eye a lot. And I'm who doesn't want to like wander a ruined island and like windswept moors but yeah, I think I'd probably go stir crazy after like 3 months of not having anybody to talk to. But
That's fair.
I mean, it's been 2 years of this nonsense, so who knows?
Yeah, like a lighthouse keeper or something.
Right,
Oh
right.
man. And if what would be a profession that you would never want to do?
Oh gosh, anything with math, like accounting. Um,
I feel that.
like my darling husband's an accountant, and I'm just like, I can't. What I don't. Yeah, I can't. No,
Yeah.
something like that. That would be awful.
Yeah,
No.
my dyslexia would I would be done and
Mm-mm,
quit
mm-mm,
after 10 minutes.
mm-hmm.
And what is your favorite curse word?
Well, I mean, I feel like fuck is probably a pretty great all-purpose word, so I would probably, yeah, that one.
Okay. It does have quite a diverse usage,
Yes.
as stated in one of my favorite movies, The Boondock Saints.
There you
Anywho,
go.
when so thanks for coming. Thank you very much. And do you want to give a plug for your book or anything before we go?
Yeah. Weaver's Folly. You can get it online. You can get it at Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's available in paperback, hardcover, audiobook, and ebook. So if you like to listen to your stories or you have an e-reader, you have all sorts of options. Or all of them if you would like. You can get them in all
Please
formats.
do it.
But yeah, so if you like Shadowrun and urban fantasy, pick it up. You might really enjoy it. So
And
yep.
one thing I do always remind everybody too is if you do enjoy an author and you enjoy their book, most importantly, leave reviews. Correct? Always,
Absolutely, yes.
yeah. Leave reviews everywhere you can. Goodreads, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you purchase it from. Leave
Yep.
reviews. That's very
Hmm.
very helpful. So when you're not at Starbucks, they could find you on Twitter at the Unfettered Muse and Facebook.com. It's slash Sarah Madsen author
Hmm.
and unfetteredmuse.com. Correct?
Right. Yes.
Perfect. We'll have all those links down below for people to click on, but just
Excellent.
want to say it just in case anyone needs to hear it and can't read it. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.